Please give this video a chance. You wouldn't believe how much effort it's taken to set all this up in a random field. Still more work to do. In this video we are going to be taking a look at a Eurohike Backpacker 2-person tent I've been using for 15 years, a 1-person Pinnacle Trekker tent I've been using for about 2 years, and a bivvy that I've been using for the last few weeks. And there's a few positives and negatives to these items that you might not think about depending on the sort of camping you're intending to do. First thing you can see is that the 1-person tent is significantly smaller in its bag than the 2-person, and of course the bivvy, if you remove the pegs and the poles, the actual bivvy itself is such a small amount of material, you could really compress that down a lot smaller even than it is here. We will start with what is allegedly a 2-person tent, but I'll let you be the judge of that when we do the size comparison test with the air mattress later on in this video. So this being a 2-person tent is surprisingly big compared to the 1-person tent. So this is a lot of floor space, which we'll talk about why that might be a negative in just a second, but it's also 2.6 kilograms, which is twice the weight of the 1-person tent we're going to see in just a second. So here you can see with just the outer pitched, you've got a huge indoor area. So if you were going to use just the outer and a bivvy, for example, you might be very happy at this point with loads of space to get your bivvy in and keep your kit out of the rain and your boots out of the rain, for example. So why might this floor space be an issue though? Well, it may shock you that even though this is a relatively small tent compared to some of the campsite megastructures that exist these days, if you're up a mountain, in all of that space outdoors, it's shocking sometimes just how few places there are for a decent pitch for a tent. And even in some woodland the other week, I was shocked that I was having difficulty finding a little area just to put up my tiny little bivvy. However, if you're backpacking and taking this from proper campsite to campsite, you're going to have a nice flat open space and be absolutely loving the amount of room you have indoors in the safe, calm, dry environment. With a weight of over 2.5 kilograms, you might be thinking, well, if it sleeps 2 people, then why not split it between 2 backpacks and halve the burden for each other? And I'll just say, keep your conclusions on hold for just a moment, and when we do the size comparison later on in this clip, you'll maybe change your thought on that. If you're watching this video and it's only got about 200 views after a year, just think of the effort that's gone into those 200, and please pretend you're here with me so I know it was worth my while. On to the 1-person tent. Now remember, this isn't meant to be a series of reviews, this is meant to be thoughts on the benefits and drawbacks to different sizes of tent in different conditions. So firstly, I want to say I do love this tent and I bought it really cheap from Amazon, and I see there's various almost non-branded versions of it for sale now. However, the first drawback to it, even though it's lightweight and a small footprint, is, as you can see, we've had to put the inner up first, which means if we were doing this in a horrendous windy rainstorm, we would have got a very wet inner tent, and of course now putting the outer on, we'd be locking in a lot of that moisture and condensation for a very damp night on the hillside somewhere. Now you may notice here, because the 2-person tent has a second tent pole that keeps the foot end nice and elevated, that's a massive advantage compared to this. Now, as I say, this is of course half the weight of the 2-person tent, weighing in at 1.3 kilograms give or take, but you do lose an extreme amount of space for that, and you have the tent basically on your toes at the foot end. Anyway, if you think that the 1-person tent is small, brace yourself for the Alpkit Elan bivvy. Now, this has got 2 aluminium poles just to keep the bivvy away from your face at the head end, but as you can see, it takes literally 2 minutes to pitch. It's got an extremely small footprint. However, it is very, very basic, and I will fully accept it's more of an enthusiast and niche item compared to the tents that will give you a lot more of a comfortable outdoors experience. We'll talk more on the bivvy in just a second after we've compared the size of the air mattress going in the other tents first, so that you can really see just how small it is and why, even though it's quick and easy to set up, it might have huge drawbacks. So we've got 188 centimetres by 56 centimetres at its biggest part for my Hibernate air mattress, and as you can see, climb into the two-person tent, suddenly it might start to look a lot smaller than it did originally. Now here you can see this is just the air mattress, and that's how much area it takes up when placed centrally. So if you push that out to the side and imagine two people with those in there, not to mention all of the other kit and items, clothing, sleeping bags, you're not only going to be getting yourself pushed up against the inner sheet at both sides of the tent, you're also going to be potentially getting to know people very, very well over the course of a night in there. I just wanted to show you there as well the surprisingly limited headroom that two-person tent's got. But of course, once we get into the single-person tent, the two-person might start to look very big again. So here we are. Our mattress is taking up basically all of the floor space. There's not as much space on either side as it may appear here. And again, just imagine putting a few items in there, your sleeping bag as well, and a pillow, maybe a few clothes. That space is going to rapidly fill up. And with this not being the best designs of tents, you can see just how close the inner and outer sheets are. And at that bottom end, your feet are going to be knocking that condensation down off the outer sheet onto you all night. So hope that it's nice and dry and not too humid. On to the bivvy, my friends. And this will redefine the idea of very minimalist camping. So as you can see, the top end of those poles is kept nicely away from my head. However, all of that central area, I think even if I used the bottom tag to keep the foot end pulled tight, would still be all over your body. And you think if you've got a pillow and a sleeping bag in there, how much more bulk just the sleeping bag will add to your body overall for that full length. So the bivvy has massive advantages in it weighs so much less than the tents and needs far less ground for a decent pitch and literally takes less than 2 minutes to pitch. However, as we look at me trying to get thumbnail images for this video, this is the ridiculous nature of content creation in the modern age, the bivvy's drawbacks are, well, it's got absolutely no extra shelter, and if you're getting into that completely soaking wet, there's nowhere to dry your clothes, there's nowhere to keep your kit, and even your backpack might have to stay outside and get soaked in the rain overnight, for example. As you see me do the Herculean rapid test of breaking all these down and packing them up one after the other, I suppose I should wrap this up with a very simple summary. Obviously, the bigger the tent, the heavier it's likely to be, but the more comfortable your night's sleep is likely to be. If you're camping in campsites and just backpacking from one place to another where you know it's going to be a nice calm flat grassy field, you may want to take the extra weight to have the extra size and a more comfortable night. However, you may find yourself doing so on a hillside thinking, oh, I wish I had a smaller tent, oh, I wish it was easier to pitch, I wish it didn't have all these toggles to attach the inner. But then if you've got a smaller tent like mine where the inner goes up first, you might be thinking, oh, this is terrible, it's going to be soaking wet now. Oh. So yeah, there's a lot to think about other than just looking at the sizes and weights when it comes to tents. And I hope this has shed a little bit of light on some of the other areas to think about when it comes to picking a backpacking tent or a wild camping tent. I'll say a big thank you to everybody for watching this video, and a huge thank you to everybody who supports me as a channel member, a PayPal supporter, a Facebook subscriber, or leaves a super thanks. It really means a lot, especially when doing videos like this. You can imagine the huge amount of time and effort that went into doing this video for what ultimately has barely reached 9 minutes as a finished product. So thank you very much. It really, really helps, especially as I need to replace half of my kit as well. So thank you to everybody. I will see you very soon with another camping trip, and we'll see what adventures await. Until the next time, keep it interesting, keep it tent worthy, have a fantastic day, and of course, my friends, farewell.